Twin Jades of Jiangdong. Chapter 37. Chibi. The entirety of Jiangdong, like a giant deep in sleep, startled awake in that moment. 1K into the yin hour, a long, winding dragon shivered uneasily from its head, on Mount Nanping, to tail, where the river flowed past the red cliffs. Chu Kaoliang ascended the stairs to the platform, where he would cast the spell. The vast expanse of stars above filled the sky with their light. There was not a single whisper of wind, nor a single wisp of cloud. Huge braziers stood in the four directions and the positions of the 28 stars, matching up with the stars in the sky above. Chu Kaoliang held the seven-star sword in hand, and clad in a bright yellow daoist headpiece and a robe of the universe and the bagua, pointed the sword at the sky. As if the heavens were responding, the waters out past the southern shore crashed, wave after wave, onto the shore. Huanggai, both hands on his sword which he was using as a crutch, pointed his sword at the ground. Behind him, thousands of soldiers of Eastern Wu boarded their ships, pushing their lone boats, which splashed in the water as they floated into the inky darkness of the Changjiang. One boat held 10 people, and they all took up oars. Huanggai stood at the prow of a boat as if he was a statue carved from stone, and they headed forth into the dense darkness. The fog of Chibi rose above the surface of the water, and in the darkness, there came the faint sounds of ships, lashed to each other with metal chains, colliding against each other. The 800,000 men of the Cao army were crossing the river and heading east. Zhou Yu led his men onto the boats, and he set down a wooden table at the prow of his ship. On it he placed a chine, 3 cups of wine, and 1 stick of incense. The incense smoke coiled around him, as if it was trying to gather into a shape on this silent deck. Gongjin, Sun Sa smiled. Zhou Yu looked up, and he met the gaze of Sun Sa, whose form appeared amidst that dense white fog. He smiled slightly at him. "Please grant me your protection, Bafu," Zhou Yu said. "Protect me, and protect Eastern Wu." Sun Quan walked forward. Zhou Yu raised his voice. 3 cups of wine, to honor the heavens, to honor the ancestors of the Sun family, to honor your valiant soul. Sun Quan lifted the cups and poured them into the river. The eastern wind rose, and in that moment, battle lust thousands of years old burst forth from the Changjiang, the bellows thundering to the heavens themselves. The layer of clouds parted instantly, as a strong burst of the east wind blanketed the entirety of the battleground of Chibi. The grey fog was instantly dispersed. At the summit of Mount Nanping, the banners flapped wildly. Chu Kaoliang opened his eyes and pulled his sword back, tilting his head up to look at the sky. In an instant, the braziers were blown every which way. Against the strong wind, Lu Su gave the signal to carry out their orders, but the altar had already burst into a sea of flame. The Cao fleet had already appeared amidst the strong winds and waves. The sky to the east had turned fish-belly white, and banners were raised across the entirety of the Jiangdong navy as they began to row. "Gongjin de Ji," Sun Quan suddenly said. Zhou Yu's hands were pressed down against the strings of the chine, and he remained silent. "Do you still remember that day that my brother passed away?" Sun Quan stood behind Zhou Yu. "I remember," Zhou Yu said. "I knew your brother for 22 years, and I remember every second of every day. Even though we parted often and reunited little. I can no longer truly recall what he looked like, or what he said," Sun Quan said quietly. "I only remember that back then, he treated me very sternly." Youthful Sun Sa's spirit remained as he had, hugging his knees as he sat at the prow of the boat, smiling carelessly and openly. The eastern wind sent up waves and dissipated the fog covering the river, but it could not blow away that swirl of green smoke that gathered into the form of an old friend. "When I first met your brother," Zhou Yu said with a small smile, "it was the year we were 4. As they spoke, the rising sun exploded with majestic blazing rays of light, dyeing half the sky red. On Mount Nanping, the morning bells rung. The swift wind blew past, roaring like a dragon. Dang dang dang. Metal clanged like the roar of a dragon. The huge dragon of Jiangdong, draped in scales of gold, finally woke fully, and it took that chance to turn its head and spew forth blazing flames of red and gold, which swept eastward across the vast river. Split the forces! Huanggai roared. As they got closer and closer to the Cao forces, Huanggai's fleet suddenly split into two. They borrowed the momentum of the wind, as well as the force of all the men at the oars, as they scattered across the surface of the river, the small boats surrounding the large ones. Soldiers in the Cao army began to realize that something was wrong, and they all began to shoot downwards. Huanggai roared once more, "Set the fires!" In that instant, hundreds of thousands of red lotuses blossomed in the center of the river, bringing with them firelight and burning heat. More kerosene spread forth from them, and with the waves, were brought right to the Cao army's warships. As soon as the first explosions rang forth, Zhou Yu's fingers swept across the 5 strings, the sound of the chain splitting the very earth open. The entire Changjiang bellowed with a startling roar as it swept towards the Cao troops. The Battle of Chibi. The flames of war engulfed the entire river. Warships collapsed with loud bangs. Lightning and thunder crackled across the sky. Red lotuses blossomed as far as the eye could see, as ship masts tilted to and fro and corpses floated by the millions. The river ran red with blood. For some reason, when this hellish sea of blood reflected in Zhou Yu's eyes, what he thought of was the afternoon of that day when he and Sun Ce had first met. The waves of sound ripped outwards, enveloping the waters of the river, which were as turbulent as a lightning storm. The waters rose like a huge dragon struggling mightily, bringing with it the spirits of heroes that died before their time had come, bringing with it the rage of all of Jiangdong, as it swept down on the Cao army. The surface of the river was covered in kerosene, and the Cao troops suddenly halted. Their warships collided with each other as fires burst into existence, filling the sky. The strong wind sent up a sea of flames, and the dry warships and their huge sails caught fire at once. With the sound of Zhou Yu's chain as a signal, which thundered in their eardrums, all of the warships of eastern Wu sallied forth, creating a circular formation. They circled around outside, tossing pots of fire inwards in 2s and 3s. "Kill!" Gan Ning shouted. The first warship collided with the interconnected Cao troops' ships, and amidst the blazing flames, the Wu troops fought their way onto the decks. On the commander's ship, Sun Ce shouted, "Untie the chains! Disperse the formation!" But the strong wind blew the burning sails of the ships closer, and the masts collapsed in 2s and 3s. The kerosene floating on the water had already turned into a blazing sea, and Sun Ce's command ship and Zhou Yu's command ship collided. Zhou Yu moved his hand again. The strings on the chain all thundered at once, and Zhou Yu lifted his head, swiftly plucking the strings. "Retreat!" Sun Quan shouted, horrified. Sun Ce laughed coldly. "Zhou Gongjin. We meet again." "It has been several years since our last meeting," Zhou Yu said, raising his voice. "Has the Chancellor been well?" In the blink of an eye, 2 eastern Wu warships charged at him from the left and right. They collided thunderously, their spurs smashing into the command ship in the center. Sun Quan took the mallets and struck the drums, while the command ship that Zhou Yu was on beat a quick retreat. Arrows instantly flew through the air, and Zhou Yu strummed the strings again, changing the melody. The arrows fell like rain, filling the sky above. The black mass loomed threateningly over the command ship, and they thudded down. The deck was covered with arrows, but not a single one fell in a 3-step radius of Zhou Yu. The chain continued on with the sound of metal and stone splitting, as if thousands of men and horses were charging across the surface of the river. In that instant, when Sun Quan raised his head, he seemed to see, beneath the layer of clouds, the glowing outlines of war horses, as if the heroic spirits of the Changsha troops were descending from the sky. Flames blazed across the surface of the water, and accompanied by the commands issuing from Zhou Yu's fingers, they burst, sending out waves of heat and divine flame. Towards the end, the first string of Zhou Yu's qin snapped. He spewed out a mouthful of blood, which dyed the ancient qin red. "Governor!" Sun Quan shouted, his face immediately losing all color. That string snapped as if the sky itself had fallen. Right after, countless Eastern Wu warships threw out their last fire mines. The fire mines and pots of oil arced through the air, before turning into thousands of burning comets, trailing their blazing tails behind them as they shot towards the earth. Under the gloomy sky, the fiery comets fell like a torrential storm, instantly striking the warships of the Cao army. When the second string broke, it was as if the Changjiang itself had ceased to flow. The world fell silent. In the vast universe, a breeze began to blow, and the clouds began to move. The dense layer of clouds in the sky parted temporarily, revealing the passing of the long night in the west, as well as that resplendent sun rising in the east. Lightning forked across the sky, and a muted rumble of thunder rolled across the earth. With the majesty that the parted clouds imparted, all of the warships released their spars, rushing towards the Cao troops' warships. A huge boom shook the entire Changjiang, and Zhou Yu swept all 5 of his fingers across again. The third and fourth strings snapped. The waters of the Changjiang billowed and surged, as if the tides of the ocean were rising from them, sending up a line of white. Then, thousands of men thundered forth, tens of thousands of horses galloped forward, and the kerosene sent up blazing flames that filled the sky, turning into the deadly flames of a dragon's breath as it rushed towards the Cao army's warships. Zhou Yu's fingers swept towards that last string, only for a hand to gently press against the back of his bafu. Zhou Yu raised his head. Those eyes were still those same familiar eyes, and that smile was still that familiar smile. One of Sun Ca's hands caressed Zhou Yu's cheek, before he then pulled out the golden panlong staff, swiftly leaping onto the prow of the boat. With a loud shout, he brought the staff down on the warships in the distance. Sun Ca's heroic spirit dissipated in the air, vanishing without a trace. That blow of his staff, however, moved the great river and the world itself. The Cao warships in its path all collapsed, as if a windstorm had devastated them, crashing down over them like the mountains were falling and the seas were being filled. Bright flames filled the world, before exploding with a hong, setting the horizon ablaze with the light of a red sunrise. With the 5 strings in hand, the sound of Zhou Yu's qin thundered forth, echoing through the mountains and the valleys, echoing out across the vast waters of the river, ringing on and on without end. Masts toppled and sank into the water, and the waters of the river reflected the blazing flames above. It was unclear where the blood ended and the water began. After that, Zhou Yu said, pressing down on the strings, that was how it went. Sun Quan sat tall behind Zhou Yu, his hands placed on his knees. Both of them looked towards the blaze of Chibi. The warship under them bobbled and shook, and war cries filled the air. Without them realizing, they had actually spoken for so long. From the moment that the flames had burst to life, Zhou Yu had recalled too many memories of the past. Even now, he was still sunk in them, and tears blurred his vision. Sun Quan sat by his side, and after hearing him speak of his memories for so long, he was filled with 1,000 emotions for a time, and did not know how to respond. "I still can't bring myself to do it," Sun Quan said. "I know," Zhou Yu replied, lightly and easily, "which is why I sent Ding Feng a step ahead to detain Kong Ming." Explosions rang out in the distance, and the Changjiang had already become a battlefield engulfed in flame. Chu Kaoliang hurried down Mount Nanping, and Lu Su raced after him in the distance. "Xian Sheng, please wait a moment." Lu Su raised his voice. Chu Kaoliang shouted back in response, but he did not stop. He climbed aboard a small boat, and Lu Su's expression changed as he said, "My family's Zigong still has something to discuss." Though Chu Kaoliang was wearing the robes of a deist, his face was still full of smiles, and he bowed deeply in the distance to Lu Su. "I have an important duty to fulfill, so I have no choice but to bid farewell." The soldiers began to row, and the boat, assisted by the wind, shot out past the waves. The soldiers under Lu Su's command chased them to the edge of the river, but Chukaoliang took the opportunity, while the east wind was still blowing, to get 100 paces distant. He left one sentence in parting, Zijing Xiang. I will welcome you as a guest in Jingzhou. A warship came racing after Chukaoliang's little boat that rode the wind and the waves. Dingfeng stood at the prow of the boat, doggedly in pursuit, but as they closed the distance, another small boat sped through the waves, shooting like an arrow towards them. Please send my Zigong's regards to the governor. Zhao Yun called, bow in hand as he stood at the prow of his ship. We will meet again in Jingzhou. And saying this, he drew his bow and knocked an arrow, which shot forth like a comet, slicing right through the rigging of the mast. The entire warship slanted sideways in the middle of the river, and Chukaoliang managed to escape with his life. Under the protection of Zhao Yun, he swiftly headed towards the northern shore. The Cao army had been soundly routed, and countless men had fallen into the water. After the warships caught fire, they were swept up by the huge waves, and a huge ship, some 100 zhang long, fell towards them, crashing into the barracks. Protect the chancellor. Amidst the blazing flames, the corpses on the northern shore numbered in the tens of thousands. Xia Yuan galloped forth on a horse, leading the troops in a hasty retreat. The eastern Wu soldiers, however, let loose arrow after arrow as they got closer and closer. In his panic, So Sa shouted, "Gather the main army round." War drums began to beat, and on the slopes of the mountains to either side of Wulin, the thousands of soldiers that had been lying in wait charged forth at once. Zhang Fei and Liu Bei each led 10,000 men as they carved two bloody paths into the central formation of Cao Ca's army. After a single engagement, the Cao troops were routed a second time, and they trampled each other underfoot as they fled, leaving behind countless of their dead and wounded. Under the protection of his personal guard, So Sa escaped from Wulin, retreating towards Xiangyang. The soldiers startled from even their own shadows as they headed along the Wurong road, only to see Guan Yu standing there, his blade in hand. On the southern shore of the Changjiang, cheers rang out across the river's surface. Lightning forked across the sky, and the strong wind brought with it torrential rain. It rained harder and harder, and Zhou Yu was drenched. The blazing flames on the surface of the river had already been extinguished, and the destroyed ships floated on the surface of the water, bobbing up and down. The river was filled with corpses. Lu Su strode onto the ship, saying, "Guan Yu, let So Sa go." "I knew long ago that this day would come," Zhou Yu replied. Water dripped from Zhou Yu's armor as he stood up slowly. Sun Quan moved to help him up, but Zhou Yu waved slightly. Water ran off him as he knelt with one knee in front of Sun Quan, his face tilted up at the sky, drops of water falling onto his face. Amidst the icy rain, the dark clouds once again covered the sky. "May the heavens watch over my eastern Wu," Zhou Yu intoned. The gongs rang out to withdraw the troops, and the southern bank exploded with round after round of thunderous cheering. In the autumn of the 13th year of Jianan, So Sa's forces were defeated at Chibi, and his 500,000-strong army was completely annihilated. Those who were left retreated to Luoyang, and numbered less than 50,000. That same year, Sun Quan claimed and pacified Jiaozhou. Liu Bei, with his 20,000 soldiers, established himself in Jingzhou, taking the position of overseer of Jingzhou. Jingzhou was split into three, which went to So, Lu, and Sun. The world was divided into Wei, Shu, and Wu. In the 15th year of Jianan, Zhou Yu set out eastward on a campaign to Bashu, but when he was dispatching his troops to Zhongling, he fell gravely ill and passed away in Baiqiu. The entire country went into mourning, and when the coffin with his remains was brought to the Wu commandery, all the officials of Eastern Wu came out of the city to welcome it. That same year, his spirit was laid to rest in Lake Chao, where it was sunk into the lake at the foot of Mount Gu alongside Sun Sa's remains, just like Zhou Yu's will had requested. In the 24th year of Jianan, Guan Yu besieged Xiongfen. Sun Quan sent Lu Meng and Lu Sun to ambush Jingzhou. With enemies both in front and behind him, Guan Yu's army was defeated and he was killed, and Jingzhou returned under the command of Eastern Wu. In the Yueming year, So Sa passed away from an illness, and So Pi took up the role of the king of Wei. That same year, he ascended to the throne, changing the era name to Huangshu. In the second year of Huangshu, Lu Sun, at the behest of the deceased Zhou Yu, burned 700 li of linked camps, soundly routing the Shu troops. Liu Bei retreated to Yizhu. The world was divided into three, and in Yizhu, he passed away. In the 7th year of the Huangshu era, So Pi died of an illness in Luoyang. 7 years later, Chu Kaoliang sent out his 5th expedition, to Mount Qi, as part of a northern expedition to attack the kingdom of Wei. In the 5th month, Sun Quan received a letter and advanced his troops to the mouth of Lake Chao. After gaining the blessing of Zhou Yu and Sun Sa's spirits, he reforged the alliance with Shu Han. 3 separate armies attacked So Wei, but did not manage to defeat Man Chong's army, and had to retreat without any achievements. In the 1st year of the Huanglong era, Sun Quan crowned himself emperor and established the kingdom of Wu. In the 1st year of the Taiyuan era, he passed away from an illness at the ripe old age of 71. In the 5th year of the Xianing era, Lu Kang passed away from an illness, and Emperor Wu of Jin, Sima Yan, conquered Wu. Sun Hao surrendered on the walls of the stone city. Eastern Wu was destroyed, and the 3 kingdoms were unified under the Jin dynasty. The day the country was destroyed, it numbered 4 provinces, 43 commanderies, 313 counties, 52,300 households, 32,000 officials, and 23,000 soldiers. The people numbered 2,300,000, while their grain numbered 2,800,000 hu, and the ships numbered over 5,000. The 15th year of Jianan, Baiqiu. The autumn wind blew through the hall. Everything in the world was dying. The sky was clear and bright, and the lands were covered in a sea of golden yellow. From the Baiqiu Dengjun pavilion came a series of coughs that issued forth from Zhou Yu, who coughed so hard that he was almost unable to take his next breath. A soldier standing to the side came forward to hand him a cup of tea. "Thank you," Zhou Yu said, exhausted. "Governor, please rest for a bit," the soldier said. "It will be several more days until the reinforcements come, so please do not overexert yourself." Zhou Yu put his brush to paper and wrote letters home. After he sealed them, he had the men send them out. Xiao Jiao was in Jianyi, Lu Su was in Zhongling, while Sun Quan was in the Wu commandery. Autumn, the time when all things withered, had come, and not a single person was by his side. He was all alone. A breeze brought the smell of dried grass with it, as well as a yellow leaf spinning into the room. When he looked closer, it was actually a butterfly, as vivid as life. It landed on the table and fluttered its wings, before circling and flying out past through the fluttering curtains. Zhou Yu sipped his half-filled cup of cold tea, before he laid down on his bed to rest for a bit. When he went to sleep, however, he did not rise again. "What time is it?" Zhou Yu asked quietly. He was no longer coughing. Responding to the governor, "It is the Wei hour." Dimly, Zhou Yu heard the sounds of children frolicking about drift in from the outside. Since it was autumn, the sky stretched endlessly above, and the sunlight shone in brilliantly, lighting up the plains covered in withered grass, warming the people who sat in its light. "Who is speaking?" Zhou Yu asked. Responding to the governor, "It is Captain Lin's children, who are flying a kite outside. I'll shoo them away right now." "No, no need," Zhou Yu said, shutting his eyes. "This is pretty good. Where was the kite made?" The soldier had no answer to that. Zhou Yu remembered an object, and he said, "On the lowest level of the military plans shelf, there is a box. Bring the items in the box to me." The soldier went, and at the very bottom of the shelf, he found a heavy, shiny, black metal box. He spent a long time trying to open it, but could not, so he had no choice but to inform Zhou Yu. "Governor, there is no key." "The key?" Zhou Yu's lips were so dry that they were cracking. "At this moment, I am actually unable to remember where I put it." The soldier had no choice but to smash the lock on the box. In the box were two faded yellow silk bags with talismans in them. After he retrieved them, Zhou Yu, his hand trembling, took them, and the soldier stuffed them into Zhou Yu's hands. Zhou Yu laid quietly on the bed, his hands clasped together, his fingers covering those two silk bags. "It's flying high. Don't tangle the string. Wait for me." From afar came the voices of the children, accompanying the dust motes that flew in through the window. Zhou Yu drifted in and out of consciousness. No one was by his side, he was the only one left. "Gongjin." Sun Sa's voice sounded in his ear. Zhou Yu opened his eyes, only to see Sun Sa, who he had not seen for a long time. He began to smile. "How come you're here?" Zhou Yu asked, surprised. Sun Sa held a kite in his hand, and he smiled mysteriously at him. He gestured, and Zhou Yu sat up, climbed off the bed, and followed Sun Sa out the door. The blue sky stretched endlessly above, and the sun shone down brightly. The air was crisp and fresh, and the colors of the mountains and plains, in that moment, seemed to grow more vivid. The scent of the dried grasses mingled with the scent of their clean clothes that wrapped around their youthful forms, and when they ran, they trampled over row after row of wilted grass. "Hey! Wait just a moment!" Sun Sa shouted, smiling. Zhou Yu stood some tens of paces away, tugging at the long string. The kite flew higher and higher, and it spun as it drifted under that blue sky. In the Dengjun pavilion, on the bed, the wind stopped, and the curtains fell still. Zhou Yu's expression was solemn yet peaceful, and his white robes enveloped his thin frame as one hand dangled limply. 1 month later, Sun Quan personally escorted the coffin to Shu County. The mountains were green and the waters clear, and the blue waves of Lake Chao stretched endlessly. "It is a good place," the gathered officials all said. Back then, when General Sun was still in this world, the governor often said that one day, he would welcome us to Shu County, Zhang Zhao said, stroking his beard. "A good land produces heroes among men. This is a good place indeed." Sun Quan replied, "Back in the day, when my father died, my mother and I stayed in Gongjin de Ji's house for several years. I often wanted to come back, but all sorts of matters bogged me down, and I had no way to make the trip." Sun Quan was no longer the child from back then, but when he walked to the shore of Lake Chao, he still remembered that long ago scene. That spring day, Zhou Yu and Sun Sa had gone boating on Lake Chao. One was fishing at the stern, while the other was sitting at the prow, drinking wine and cooking fish. Sun Quan had been sitting to one side, almost drooling in anticipation as he waited for Zhou Yu to lift the lid off the pot. It was in those days that Zhou Yu had taught him that governing a large country was like cooking a dish. It was then that Zhou Yu had taught him how to cultivate his own morals to govern a country and conquer the world. As of now, Zhou Yu and Sun Sa sank with the coffin into Lake Chao, fulfilling their wish from the past. Zhou Yu lay quietly in the coffin, hugging Sun Sa's urn of ashes to him. His handsome face looked just as it had when he was alive, it had not changed at all. Xiaoqiao, tears blurring her vision, scattered the leaves of the mugwort plant. Zhou Yu's children worked together to push the lid onto the coffin and lift the coffin of dense wood, bringing it to the center of the lake. 3 boats sent it sinking gently to the bottom of the lake. The white falcon let out a screech that pierced the air, before spreading its wings and flying into the sky. In the icy blue waters of the lake, the wooden coffin slowly sank, little bubbles drifting off it as it went. Zhou Yu's eyes were tightly shut, and his pitch-black hair billowed, curling around the remains of Sun Sa in his arms. "Gongjin." Sun Sa began to smile, and his form turned indistinct as he wrapped his arms around Zhou Yu. Zhou Yu's soul opened his eyes, which were filled with a smile, and he lifted his arms to embrace Sun Sa in return. Under the jade blue sky, spring and summer whirled on by. The light and shadows of countless years faded away, and spring had arrived in Jiangdong once more. Peach blossoms filled the mountains and the plains, and at the foot of Mount Gu, by the shores of Lake Chao, children sent up kites on the mountainside. It's here. Come quickly. Two children chased the kite into the dilapidated Mu temple. Nothing but ruins were left of the temple, and within the ruins was a bell splotched with verdigris. The kite had draped itself over the bell yoke. The two boys sat, shoulder to shoulder, in the Mu temple on Mount Gu. One of them had the string wrapped around his hand, while the other one held the kite. Fei glided across the sky, and the taller boy said to the shorter one, "Hey, look at that bird. It keeps flying about day in and day out. It couldn't be a falcon, could it?" The other boy had a hint of a smile about his mouth as he carefully coiled the string. "Why do I feel like I recognize it?" that taller boy said. "Try calling for it. See if it comes down," that boy who was coiling the kite string said, without even lifting his head. The tall boy put two fingers to his mouth and whistled. In the air, when Fei heard the sound of the whistle, it pitched downwards and shot towards them, before it folded its wings and came to a stop in front of the two of them. The boy coiling the string lifted his head, his eyes filled with the light of surprise. "This bird's ours now," that boy carrying the kite said. "Let's go." His companion didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he was led down the mountain. Fei, however, remained quiet and docile. It folded its wings, and it was brought down the mountain. The two children stepped onto the wooden raft. The stronger one manned the pole at the tail of the raft, while the other one wrapped the string around his hand and lifted the kite, waiting in anticipation. "Let it go, hey," that tall boy urged him. "To destroy Lord Cao, we must attack with fire. Everything is in place, and all we lack is the east wind," the other boy said, mock solemnly. The east wind began to rise, filling the sky and the earth, sending ripples across the surface of Lake Chao. As soon as the kite was freed, it spun around across the surface of the lake, before it rustled as it dragged against the spool. With 1,000 yards of white string draped across it, it flew into the sky, gliding across the vast expanse of the heavens. The twin peaks of Mount Gu rose like a pair of walls, towering to either side of Lake Chao. Peach blossoms danced through the air, filling the entirety of the warm, gentle world. Twin Jades of Jiangdong main story end.